One of the things that has always captivated me about Robert Hill's Complete Guide to Small Group Ministry is its subtitle. Okay, that tells you something about how big a nerd I am, but I should probably explain myself a little further. Hill is a Unitarian Universalist minister who, 10 to 15 years ago, was serving one of the UUA's districts here in the south. That was when this new program called Small Group Ministry was taking the UU world by storm. Starting with just one workshop at the UUA's General Assembly in Nashville in 2000, more and more congregations were trying to get such a program started based on what they knew or thought it was supposed to be. So Hill surveyed hundreds of UUs, worked with others to figure out the essential principles, and then published his complete guide in 2003. And so strongly did he believe in small group ministry that he gave it the subtitle that, as I say, has always captivated me: Saving the World 10 at a Time. That's no small claim. Why would this program, given the otherwise unassuming name of small group ministry, be described in such lofty terms as saving the world 10 people at a time? Well, consider the description of that workshop at the Nashville GA. People enter our congregation seeking intimacy and spiritual growth. Too often, all we offer are committee meetings. Hear how the congregation in Augusta, Maine planned and introduced a small group program that now involves half the congregation in small sharing groups dedicated to spiritual growth and caring connections. Clearly, that congregation in Augusta had hit upon something really important. Or consider how Hill himself puts it in his complete guide. Saving the world is a grandiose phrase. It points to the far end of a continuum of impulses that move from pure self-interest outward. Attending to those people emotionally closest to us is one step along that continuum. Caring about our neighbour is another, and fulfilling the responsibilities of citizenship is one more. Or consider the story that another UU minister, Tandeka, tells in her foreword to Hill's book. She had been meeting with the members of a congregation who were interested in starting small group ministry, and she asked them if they might be willing to simply get together over a meal and talk about what they needed. Tandeka writes, "One of the most respected elder statesmen of the church stood up and slowly walked to the front. He had wanted something like this for years, he said, because he was lonely. I do not have any friends," he finally confessed. Waves of shock rolled through the gathering. How could he be lonely? He was a revered and beloved member of the congregation, a pillar of the church. Our social upbringing has taught us not to talk about our feelings, he explained. We are not supposed to be emotionally vulnerable or close to anyone. Small group ministry is, in short, a way to develop caring connections and often friendships with other people, simply by sharing the stories of our everyday lives and having them heard with compassion. There's no political agenda or discussion of big issues, but there is a loving, listening space that invites us to reflect on what we have found most meaningful and valuable in our own lived experiences. But it's not group therapy either. The motto, in fact, is no fixing, no saving, no advising, no setting each other straight, and no tagging on to what another says. For many of us, this is a challenge. Our social upbringing has not only taught us not to talk about our feelings, but also to debate whatever anybody else says, usually by thinking about what we're going to say next rather than actually listening to the other person. So it is a challenge to simply listen to what another person is saying and then allow for some silence while everyone digests what was said. And then, without any comment, move on to the next person who will speak of their own life. But it is so worth it. As 19th century British author and universalist Dinah Craik put it, "Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pouring them all right out, just as they are, chaff and grain together. Certain that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and then with the breath of kindness blow the rest away." This morning, after our middle hymn, you'll hear from 3 people who are part of the small group ministry program here, what we call fellowship circles. They'll speak about what this shared ministry means to them and what difference it has made in their lives. And after services, you can speak with Gail Phillips, our lay leader this morning, who is also the program coordinator for our fellowship circles, about the next cycle that will be starting in the fall. I do hope that you will consider joining one, to be part of extending love's invitation to all those seeking caring connections, to be a part of saving the world, 10 people at a time.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about an experience that has changed me in many subtle ways. You might not think that getting together with the same small group of people every other week or so to talk about random philosophical questions would have an impact on your day-to-day decisions, but it does. For example, take the mud dauber nest we found in our kitchen window this past week. My daughter and her roommate had been visiting from South Carolina, and we had been spending a fair amount of time at the kitchen table talking. But somehow we missed noticing the wasp building her nest at the top of the open window. The nest was about the size of a baby's fist, lodged in one corner between the storm and the upper sash. My daughter saw the wasp first. It was slipping between the tiny space, between the storm window and the top of the frame, hovering just outside, then returning to crawl over the nest. Panic ensued. I slammed the window. The wasp flew away after a few minutes of confusion. Later, I pushed the storm window up from the inside so the wasp couldn't get back in. Now what do I do? A few years ago, this wouldn't even have been a decision. I would have scraped the nest off the window frame with a screwdriver, preferably after dousing it with insecticidal spray. But I had been spending time with people who believe deeply in the interdependent web of all existence. These are people who don't kill mosquitoes or ants or wasps. I have been sitting in their living rooms and listening to them talk about their lives, their experiences, their feelings. It has changed me. When it was my turn to talk, I have shared things I really don't talk about with anyone else except my husband. They have listened to me, I have listened to them, and I have realized that my preconceptions about the world, including the place of wasps within it, are not truths that are self-evident. I had a nest of baby mud daubers in my kitchen window. What should I do about it? After all, we hadn't even noticed the wasp building the nest. She hadn't bothered us or tried to get into the house. Was it fair to destroy her offspring? As I was moving the upper sash to get a closer look, the nest came loose from the window frame, fell, and shattered on the sill. I was relieved that I hadn't had to make a decision about destroying it. I also felt guilty and sorry for the wasp. I feel guilty about a lot of things. I am an oldest child, after all. But it wouldn't have occurred to me before fellowship circles that I might want to think about what I was doing to the wasp. Now, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from joining a fellowship circle by talking about this experience. Odds are, if you decide to participate, your house will not be overrun by noxious stinging insects. But be prepared to be changed.
Hi, I'm Janine Christensen. You guys may know me from various activities here at the fellowship. And I actually sat out the last 18-month session of fellowship circles. Prior to that, I was in one circle for an 18-month session, and then I facilitated a circle for 18 months. And I had sat out because, I had time constraints, right? I think even in today's go-go world, if I was to give you the full schedule, you'd be like, hey, she is a little busier than usual. I've got a husband, 3 kids, full-time job, and then I've got a full complement of, good activities here at the fellowship that we all do. So I guess what I'm here to discuss is what fellowship circles have meant to me in the past and why they are important enough that I would decide that I'm going to make time for them this session. So I guess I'm going to tell you what I've missed. What have I missed about fellowship circles in the 2 years since my last one closed? Fellowship circles are at their core about being heard, about people hearing you. And once you get used to that luxury of speaking from the heart, knowing that everyone is truly tuned into you, it's hard to go back. And at the heart, this is what fellowship circles are really about, everyone in the circle truly being heard. And so conversely, of course, fellowship circles are also about listening, with your attention 100% on the person speaking. And this is a discipline. You don't just walk in and you're good at it. I think we've all had that moment where we're like ready to crosstalk, as we call it in fellowship circles. But once you've kind of mastered that discipline, gotten used to it, making yourself only listen, not mentally ticking all the things that you want to say in return, or thinking of ways to solve their problems, right? Once you've gotten past that, it is a discipline about being present for someone else, even if you disagree, even if you would come at things from a different angle. You just listen when that person is talking with your full attention. In the last circle that I facilitated, I'd always be like, guys, I wish I had a recording of this. And of course, I never did, right? But it was just, sometimes it was just so beautiful, just listening, just truly hearing. I also enjoyed putting together topics for the circles, and then I also enjoyed reading the topics that other facilitators had thought up. I was looking through some old topics in preparing to speak today, and here's kind of a sampling of some topics that I found from the past. Learning to fly, silence, beginnings, the present is the gift, being a pilgrim, guilty pleasures, when I was 10, playtime, wisdom of the Beatles, stories, all kinds of fun things. And those weren't all my topics. There were some other people's topics too. Because when you're sure that you're in a safe place with safe people who are truly present for you, you can really talk about anything. You really can. I always loved hearing what Bob Smith, my old facilitator, would come up with. And I always loved at facilitators' meetings, hearing what other people had come up with for their circles. And of course, when you've got people present for each other, truly listening and truly feeling heard while speaking on interesting topics, then of course you're going to get pretty close. You do. One of the great things is that folks from different corners of the fellowship are put together, so it won't all be people that you already know. I've met many people that I might not have met if it hadn't been for fellowship circles, and I feel like we know each other on a different level than we would if we just bumped shoulders in coffee hour. It sounds like the beginning of a joke, but it's like, what do you get when you have a pagan, an atheist, a Kabbalist, and a humanist in one room? And the answer is one of the most you experiences I think I've ever had. These are things that I had difficulty finding when I was out of fellowship circles. I've had so many great conversations, and I have so many great relationships in my life, but the discipline of a fellowship circle is pretty unique. So, while my life is busy, and fellowship circles are a time commitment, they give back to me in a way that many other activities can't. That is what I've missed about fellowship circles, and that is why I'm coming back to them this fall.
Well, for me, gratitude is the utmost thought that comes to my mind after 8 years of belonging to the Fellowship Circle program of the UUFP. I am so grateful for the gift I have received of being able to experience the art of deep, compassionate listening as practiced in these circles. I knew what listening was, although I certainly wasn't the best listener in the world. And I knew what attentive listening should be. But deep, compassionate listening is something very different, as I eventually learned. In the circles, we listen without interruption, without judgment, and respectfully and compassionately hear what is in another's heart and mind, whether you agree with it or not. I learned that each person has a story to tell and lessons to teach, and I came to love and accept each group member in a special and individual way. I wasn't sure what to expect the first time I attended a circle, but I discovered quickly, however, that these circles are not self-help groups, as some might think. A fellowship circle is not a forum for intellectual discussion and interchange. Rather, a fellowship circle is a sacred space in which the participants can speak uninterrupted on what is in their hearts and minds as it relates to the structured topic of that day's meeting, such as forgiveness, or what is your life's calling? Some UUs call them covenant circles because the members write their own covenant describing how they will stick to the guidelines of privacy and compassionate listening. Some UUs also call them small group ministry circles. I was nervous the first time I joined a fellowship circle, not knowing quite what to expect. Over time, I became more comfortable with the kindness and warmth of the group members. These people actually had to listen to me without editorial comment or feedback. However, until I became more trusting in the intention of the groups, I thought maybe the other circle members might just be humoring me. Eventually, though, I became more confident, allowing myself to express my own authentic and genuine self with less fear. Part of this trust came as members actually showed that they were listening through their own attentive and respectful behavior. So as a result of being active in these circles, I experienced a quantum leap in feeling a sense of belonging in the UUFP community in a way I had never felt in the 7 years before. Finally, I felt like I was truly part of a beloved community.
I'm out to dinner with 5 other people. I have something to add to the conversation. I say my first 10 words, and the person to my left says, "Oh, that reminds me." And that person goes on and on about a cruise experience. Beside him is his wife. The wife starts talking. She is correcting him. He doesn't stop to listen. So they're both talking at the same time. Across from me, the person turns to the person on his left, and the two of them have a private conversation, a quiet conversation, while these two are still going at it and getting louder. Finally, there's a pause, and I think, oh, it's going to be my turn. It wasn't. Nobody cared what I started to say. No one had any interest in what I was going to say. I sat the rest of the meal quiet, feeling like an outsider. Now, contrast that with being in a group about the same size. I'm talking, everyone's listening. Everyone's looking at me. Everyone is showing me respect and kindness and caring. That really did happen. When we first organized fellowship circles close to 10 years ago, the circle I was part of, and some of the people were here, I can still see and feel them looking at me and being in awe that they cared and they had concern and they had all this kindness for me. It was such, just so empowering just to feel the people looking at me and listening and caring. So fellowship circles have been really important to me here ever since. I added up some names and I realized I've been in circle with more than 50 people in those years. And, everyone touches the heart. They're just a special connection that I wouldn't have otherwise. It's really rewarding when a circle bonds and becomes a cohesive group. And it's really fun as a facilitator to watch that happen. I've been both facilitator and members of circles throughout these years. When that bonding occurs, we really do care deeply about each other. We really want to get to know each other better, and we're available if there's a need. When, however, a circle doesn't congeal, when we just remain a group of individuals, I think the main reason that happens is that somebody in the group had not learned the art of deep listening. And fellowship circle deep listening really is an art. It's not a skill, but a skill with intention, being totally focused on the speaker, honoring and respecting the speaker, having compassion for the speaker, listening without judgment. That kind of listening does result in a circle where the members find community and spiritual connectedness. Circle is a powerful symbol for me because it symbolizes equality and union and connection. In circles, there's an expectation that all have opportunity to contribute, all share responsibility, no one dominates, and all are listened to in turn. I'm really pleased to have been part of our Fellowship Circle program here. I've grown a lot. I appreciate all the people who have been in circles with me. And I appreciate, where'd you go? Gail's leadership and Andrew's guidance and modeling. I look forward to the next cycle of Fellowship Circles. I look forward to getting to know new people, having some new challenges and some new experiences. If you haven't been part of a circle, I hope you really will consider it. If you've been gone for a while, I hope you'll come back. And I would love to have my old circles back, but I also want new. It's been a great time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and in comparison to Alice and to you, I'm kind of new here. I grew up as a Unitarian, and when I left my hometown and my home fellowship and got married and went out into the world, I knew that wherever I went, If I'd find the Unitarians, I'd find my home. So when I came here, I really wanted to get to know as much as possible about the Newport News, the Hampton Roads Fellowship. I wanted to get to know people, and I wanted to participate. And when Gail told me about the fellowship circles, I thought this is really a great way to get to know some people a little bit better, more than I would know speaking in between services at the while we were drinking coffee or whatever. The fellowship circle was just a great experience for me. I got to know some people that I never would have met. You know, we have these 2 services. I get to know a lot of people that come at 11. I get to know people that come into the adult forum. But in the fellowship circle, I got to know the early birders and the late birders. So that was really nice to get the opportunity to get to know a little bit wider circle. The deep listening was something I had known about for a long time, but you know things, but actually putting it into practice is something that you have to learn. It's really difficult not to think about what you're going to say and how you react. It's really difficult to just look somebody in the eye and listen to them and understand what they're thinking and feeling. It's a really wonderful thing. So I don't really have a lot to say other than that I think being in that one fellowship circle was a huge experience for me. It taught me a lot. I got to learn about the people that I was with and value them. I was so touched by the things that we talked about, even when it was something really simple, like what is creativity? You know, there are so many different ways to be creative that I had never thought of, and it was really cool to hear what other people had to say and how they were creative. So I'm really looking forward to the next session. I'm looking forward to meeting new people and learning more about people I already know. I'm looking forward to sharing what I know. Thank you.